Zhang Linghe, top 10 dramas ranked from Chasing Jade to Overdo, which one slaps the hardest. From a ruthless marquise to a gentle campus, genius 10 Zhang Linghe dramas worth watching. A 190-centimeter frame, sharp period styling, and a face that looks made for the big screen. Zhang Linghe certainly has advantages that are impossible to ignore, but good looks may get me to click play. They don't explain why I stayed. For 10 very different characters. What actually keeps me watching is the tension beneath his calm exterior. He can appear composed while letting fear, desire, or obsession leak out through a brief pause, a lowered voice, an unreadable glance. This is exactly why he's so convincing as noblemen, who look refined but think dangerous thoughts. His modern roles pull the opposite trick, quieter, warmer, far more emotionally exposed. From the darkly calculating marquis in Chasing Jade to the gentle campus genius in Flourish in Time. These 10 dramas show how Zhang Linghe turns restraint into his most recognizable acting strength. I'll admit up front, I don't love every choice he's made, and I'll say where I think the formula wears thin. One Maiden Homes. Maiden Homes was Zhang Linghe's first leading role, and Pei Zhou already carried many of the traits that would come to define him. On the surface, he seems carefree, discreet, a little playful. Underneath sits a prince who misses nothing. And gives almost nothing away, like someone perpetually holding a poker hand nobody else can see. Zhang Linghe glides between the two so smoothly, the shift never feels engineered. One moment he's easygoing. Next, a colder flicker reminds you this man can turn ruthless in a heartbeat. His height and classical features obviously flatter the costume department. But that's not why Pei Zhou sticks with me. It's the sense that he's always withholding something. For a debut lead performance, that level of control genuinely impressed me. Though looking back now, it also set the template he'd lean on for years afterward. To Flourish in Time. If his period dramas run on authority and mystery, Flourish in Time asks for something far more delicate. And honestly, it's the role that made me take him seriously as an actor, rather than just a good-looking lead. It plays Zhang Haoyu, a brilliant but guarded student who lost his left leg in a childhood accident and lives with a prosthesis. A physical injury is only half the story. The deeper wound is a quiet insecurity, shaping how he sees himself and everyone around him. Where he keeps most people at arm's length with Liu Miao Dong in Shi, that wall comes down in inches. Leaps. Their bond grows from childhood closeness into something romantic, and the show never once reaches for a grand gesture to sell it. Most of the feeling lives in what he can't bring himself to say. I'd call this his most tender performance. A full stop. He lets the loneliness breathe without turning the character into someone to pity. It's a first love that hurts, precisely because both people care too much to be careless with it, which, if I'm honest, is rarer on screen than actors who cry beautifully. 3. The Princess Royal Pei Wenxuan is sharp, politically savvy, and genuinely affectionate. Don't mistake him for a simple romantic hero at court. He knows exactly when to retreat, to negotiate, when to quietly move the next piece into place. Things get messier with Princess Lirong's Zhao Jinmei. Their love, pride, old misunderstandings, and memories from another lifetime all tangle at once. What makes this work is that Zhang Linghe never treats tenderness and ambition as opposites. Pei Wenxuan can love someone with his whole heart and think like a strategist in the same breath. His devotion feels comforting, one scene borderline possessive, the next bitter. And I actually think the drama doesn't push that discomfort far enough. A slightly darker cut of this character would have been more interesting than the version we got, which tidies him up a bit too neatly by the finale. Underneath the political maneuvering is something painfully human, the fear of losing again, the one person you can't bear to lose. That part lands the redemption arc around. It feels a touch rushed. For My Journey to You, Gongzu opens the story as someone almost nobody believes can lead, rebellious, unprepared, more interested in dodging responsibility than picking it up. Then his father and brother die, and suddenly he's head of the Gong family, whether he's ready or not. Power doesn't land on him overnight. And that's the point. He hesitates, makes bad calls, struggles to earn trust, Zhang Linghe keeps those cracks visible, even as the character hardens. Here's my honest take. This is probably his weakest performance on this list. Yes, some viewers were drawn more to the darker supporting cast, and I understand why Gong Ziyu occasionally reads as underwritten, rather than restrained, and a couple of episodes ask Zhang Linghe to carry scenes with more silence than the material earns. Still, it's not a bad performance. It's just the one where quiet intensity starts to feel like a safety net instead of a choice still. There's something worth respecting here. Growing up isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing to keep walking while carrying it. I just wish the show trusted that idea more than it trusted his cheekbones. 5 Story of Cunning's Palace. Gosh, Wei might be the clearest proof of why Zhang Linghe keeps landing intense, psychologically knotted men. And for me, this is the performance that best justifies the typecasting. His deep voice and sharp gaze suit the role naturally. But things get interesting once his control starts to fracture. Shay Wei is brilliant, disciplined, and quietly falling apart. The trauma pressing hard against a surface he's worked so carefully to build. There's something unsettling about how still he can stay, while making a scene feel genuinely dangerous, like watching a kettle that never quite whistles, but never stops being hot either. Doesn't need volume to own a room. A small shift in his eyes suggests affection and destruction standing far too close together. The hauling Xia Wei simply crazy. Flattens everything interesting about him. His behavior can be frightening, sure. It's rooted in pain and a desperate need to control a world that once left him powerless. Zhang Linghe isn't asking us to forgive him. He's making us understand how a man like this can be terrifying, tragic, and magnetic all at once. This is the one I'd hand to someone who thinks he's just a pretty face. 6 Love Between Fairy and Devil Chang Hong is a different flavor of tragic, gentle, disciplined. But painfully aware that his own happiness comes second to duty, his love for Xiao Lanhua Esther Yu is real. But he spends most of the story swallowing it whole. That kind of restraint could have easily read as passive instead. Zhang Linghe lets disappointment leak out in small, almost private moments, like someone constantly biting back words he wishes he were free to say. A lot of viewers remember him as the second lead who made unrequited love genuinely hurt. That gets me. Most isn't that he loves silently, it's that he understands exactly what speaking up would cost. And chooses responsibility. Anyway, that's a more adult kind of heartbreak than most second lead roles. Rather, writing some romances burn because 2 people fight tooth and nail for each other. Changing story leaves a quieter ache. A good man showing up with all the right feelings at exactly the wrong moment in someone else's life. I'll admit, this one stayed with me longer than the actual endgame couple's romance did, which says something about where the show's real heart was. 7 Our Generation. In Our Generation, Zhang Linghe heads back to school, but Zhang Xiaoxi is nothing like the usual handsome top student. Raised in a suffocating household, he treats life like an exam paper. Every problem needs a correct answer. Every emotion needs to stay. Contained failure isn't an option. Then he meets Lin Keili Zhao Jinmei and gets his first real taste of a world that's warmer, freer, less predictable. Not that what makes this land emotionally is how gradually he changes. He doesn't light up just because someone loves him. The relationship gives him permission to notice his own lonelinesses and picture a life not built entirely around other people's expectations, where I'll push back a little. The jump from youthful affection to adult reunion gives the romance more texture. Sure, but it also lets the show dodge some harder questions about whether 2 people who once understood each other completely can still find their way back. Years later, the show wants the ache of that distance and the comfort of resolution. At the same time, it doesn't fully earn both. 8 The best thing after so many wounded princes. Calculate. Officials Zhang Linghu's doctor in The Best Thing feels like a genuine breath of fresh air, and I mean that as real relief, not just a compliment. His character is devoted to traditional Chinese medicine, acupuncture, medicinal cooking, the whole practice. But what makes him appealing isn't professional skill, it's the patience he shows. Shen Shifan Shuruhan. He doesn't sweep into her life as a dramatic rescuer. Healing happens through consistency. Listening closely. Remembering small things, staying present, without pushing for an immediate response in a genre that often confuses. Aggressive pursuit with passion. This quieter approach feels freshly grown up, if I'm being critical. The role is also the least demanding thing on this list. It asks him to be steady more than it asks him to transform. There's real skill in making steadiness watchable instead of dull. Sometimes the most attractive lead isn't the one who makes your pulse race. It's the one who makes you feel safe. I don't think enough dramas trust that idea, and I'm glad this one did. 9. Chasing Jade. Chasing Jade hands him his first real shot at a military figure, though the character's true journey only starts once. His power and status are stripped away. He shows up first as a proud, intimidating marquis, whose polished exterior hides a suspicious, calculating mind. Once his family falls from grace, he has to hide who he is. I'll swallow his pride and survive as an ordinary man. The contrast isn't just visual, it forces him to confront who he actually is. Once birth, reputation and power can no longer shield him. His relationship with Fan 10 Shi Yuye matters just as much. It's not built on attraction alone. They clash, negotiate, test each other, and slowly become part of each other's growth. This is exactly the role Zhang Linghe handles well. Elegant but damaged, dangerous yet exposed. But I'll say the quiet part out loud. Jack, at this point in his career, brooding, nobleman hiding pain, is starting to feel like a comfortable groove rather than a stretch. The real test isn't whether he can play this archetype. Well, again, he clearly can in his sleep at this point. It's whether the fall from privilege and the slow climb back to dignity can feel painfully personal rather than familiar. 10 Tiger and Crane. Dachi. Xiaoshuan starts off looking like the classic cold, disciplined team leader rule, abiding, emotionally locked down, keeping everyone at a careful distance. Underneath that order runs an internal struggle that quickly becomes the heart of the character. The dual personality setup gives him a genuinely tough acting challenge, rather than leaning only on costume changes or dialogue. Not to separate the two sides, he shifts his rhythm, his facial tension, his physical energy. Like two different people, sharing one set of lungs, one personality stays measured and restrained. The other brings real danger and volatility. What makes this performance compelling is that the conflict, it happens entirely within one body. Strength and fragility aren't split between hero and villain. They sit side by side in the same person. That's what lifts Qi Xiaoshuan above a stylish fantasy hero, and it's exactly the kind of role I'd love to see him take more risks with. Not push the unspoiled side. Further, let it get genuinely uncomfortable instead of just visually striking. 1000. Why does Zhang Linghe suit such different characters? His looks are obviously part of the equation. He has the height and bone structure to carry elaborate period costumes, and a quieter presence that works just as well for doctors, students, and emotionally guarded modern men. But his real edge is stillness. He knows how to let silence do the heavy lifting, a skill that pays off especially well with characters. The hiding trauma, ambition, or forbidden feelings under a composed surface. Here's the tension I keep coming back to, though. That same strength is also his biggest trap, because he fits cold, intelligent, faintly dangerous men. Or so. Naturally, directors keep reaching for the same while watching this list end to end. I noticed how often the calm surface storms underneath descriptions applies. It's true almost every time. And that's precisely the problem. A tool used. This often stops being a surprise and starts being a habit where he grows next. Depends on how willing he is to step out that comfort zone entirely. Not just softer roles like the Doctor in The Best Thing, but genuinely messier, funnier, less composed characters who don't get to hide behind an unrenewable glance every time the writing gets thin. Yet for now, his filmography already spans several shades of masculinity: the lonely student, the restrained immortal, our reluctant heir, the obsessive strategist, the patient doctor, and the fallen marquise, learning to stand on his own again. That's a real range. I just want to seem risk looking foolish, awkward, or plainly unlikable at least once. Because right now, even his flaws are elegant. Range sometimes means being willing to be a little ugly on screen. Sure. So if you had to pick just one performance to prove Zhang Linghe is more than a handsome costume drama face, which character would you choose? And where do you land on the roles I pushed back on here?